I have been having a lot of fun this fall. I have been all over the country and it's all about selling, selling, selling. I've been putting things into antique malls. I have been doing estate sales. I'm doing a storehouse sale this weekend in Kentucky. And yet, in the middle of all of that, I have been going to antique shows to promote that we're having sales. I've been going to other estate sales. I've been going to antique shops to tell them these things are coming up. And of course, I've been shopping along the way, along with the normal flow of merchandise that comes our way. I actually have a lot of fresh things that I haven't gotten to show you. So I decided to take a break from all this other activity and talk about what I'm buying lately. I think I'll start with this because they're neat old real antique pieces that I wouldn't expect to find cheap at estate sales, but I lucked out because apparently they didn't look to see that these were silver. This is from the 1909 Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition. In the bowl it shows one of the buildings, and then when you tip it this way, at the top of the handle are these three lovely women, the three Graces. They represent Alaska, the Northwest, and the Orient, as they called it then. And it's the three of them meeting to commune because we're all drawing closer together with trade and the interest. There's Mount Rainier on the back. Of course, Mount Rainier could be seen from the Seattle World's Fair site. It was all laid out with the vista of Mount Rainier as the prominent feature. You have this lovely woman blowing the horn over the little portrait of Seward because it was Seward's folly. Turned out he was right. And then Seattle underneath there. These sell for about $35 online, and so to get one for less than the sterling value is pretty great because the sterling, these are heavier, the sterling value is probably around $20. I paid less than that, so that's a pretty good deal. This is fun if your kid needs to be born with a silver spoon. Well, there's one for them, and you can put in their birth date and their year. It's all laid out for you, and you just have it inscribed into the little bowl there. And then Junior can be raised the way that one should be. Also, likely from the early 1900s, this was a souvenir of Juneau, Alaska, if you got all the way up there back then. It's not as heavy, but it's got Chief Casco over a bunch of totemic figures, and then the Juneau, Alaska is inscribed in vermeil. Vermeil is where you put a gold wash on silver to give it an even more lustrous effect. So this is a good spoon, probably about $20, even though the sterling value would be half of that. I didn't pay anywhere near that for any of those, so that was pretty great. And they are true antiques because they're over 100 years old. I knew I was coming back to Kentucky, so when I was in a space in Spokane and saw this had to come with me. It's Good Luck from Louisville, home of the Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs. I have not seen this particular shaped ashtray. It looks like something from probably the 1940s or 50s made out of aluminum, and I think it's kind of neat. I suspect it'll sell for $15 or $20 around here. It's got a victory mark, registered U.S. Patent Office. I only paid a few dollars for this. It was one of those things that was not where it belonged, and I decided to take it to where it does belong. Oh gosh, so many pretty things. Also silver. This was an interesting lesson. I picked these up and said how much, expecting to be told a silver price, and they said, oh, those crummy ones with the plastic bottoms, $2. And I said, okay, thank you, because on the plastic bottom it says toll sterling. Plastic is one of the various materials they use to weight candles. Silver candles like this very seldom are solid silver all the way through, because why would you spend that kind of money making an object like this? They are indeed hollow, and they are stuffed with various things. It was just in the late 60s and early 70s they decided to cut the pretense, and instead of putting a layer of silver on the bottom to fool you, they just showed you that, look, it's weighted, it has something inside of it. These are still probably worth about $30, and I was charged very little. So that was a nice buy. And I have people in Mount Dora, Florida, where my next show is the weekend before Thanksgiving, that will be very interested in that. But now let's show you a few things that are going to be shown in some online sales, I suspect, coming up, because I got a big collection of Fenton, and I'm only going to show you a few things because I will have a bunch of live sales and stuff, but there's some pretty neat pieces in here. So let me take just a minute with you. Little animals and novelties. I've got an entire box here, and I'll put just a few up. I'm grabbing randomly. I think I've got half a dozen here or so to show you. There are all sorts of critters. I've got the little cat here wearing some sort of an outfit. My cat would never have tolerated that. This one here is a nice little Burmese cat. And of course, this will glow under a black light. Yes, this kitty cat glows, and that's why the Burmese are very popular. Burmese cats are pretty popular too, but they're not actually that color of pink in real life. Oh, this one, here we go. Vaseline glass, the clear transparent yellow. And that guy is pretty much nuclear without me even having to turn off the overhead lights, because that is such a glower. So there's some cool stuff in here. We have the patriotic mouse, who is bigger than the cat, so they won't eat him, so that's nice. And there's lots of different signatures. I am becoming more aware that I need to pay attention to signatures. I had a Marilyn Wagner piece in a live sale with Rosie's Antique Auction last week, and I didn't realize it was Marilyn Wagner until we showed the bottom, and she's passed on recently. It was one of the natural dogs. She was considered one of their better decorators, and the price doubled in the bidding because of it. So I will need to take a little bit more time and do a little more scholarship in that area. I'll show you some more pieces of Fenton later. There's some pretty big, spectacular ones too. But let's look at a couple of other categories. I went to Preston Court Days in Kentucky with Zeno. We went up and went to Appalachia and saw where the Hatfield and the McCoy feuds were, and had a really fun time seeing the fall colors. It's lovely up there. I've done the appraisal fair in Harlan the last few years, and it's just a beautiful time to go up there. My friends up at Sassy Trash, I'm sure, would enjoy having you come visit. I went to Court Days because they have an annual event, the Court Days, and it's a big junk fair. There is one field that is entirely a gun show. That was, I would say, a little disarming, but they were all well armed. I mean, to the point where, like, one for each finger, please. I have to say it was a very mellow crowd. People behaved very well at a gun show, so I didn't have any fear of it, but it was interesting. And, you know, they're collectors like everybody else. They just like to have different ones because they're interesting to them. This is the piece I got there, though, in the field that was not about the guns. There were people selling old stuff. This was $4. It is Murano. It's a nice shell shape from the 1960s with a nice gold to it. I don't see a maker signature for a high-end studio, but I still think it's good. And this guy was also $4. This snail, I believe, is by Pilgrim Glass, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's one of their late 1960s pieces. They did a lot of these animals where a lot of the details were done by pulling and hand forming, and so they all have a little bit of this sort of crude shaping to them that actually makes them kind of appealing now. And those were great prices on those. We saw our friends Ken and Jill Carpenter, who are resellers in the Louisville, Lexington area. They are actually related to Zeno, but they are friends of mine now, and they had this. This is a reproduction of a very valuable Coca-Cola fob from the early 1900s, and you can see why. She was quite scandalous. This one was redone by a fellow in Versailles, Kentucky, and yes, they do pronounce it Versailles in this part of the country. And this was done for the Coca-Cola convention, I believe the collectors convention around 1980. She is collectible in her own right, and they only charged me a few dollars for her, so that was really nice. Zeno found this next item, and I promise I will show you something that is really antique after this, because some of you will love this and some of you will have the reaction I did, but I still ended up buying it because I think he's right. When he was a little tyke, he went to a babysitter who insisted that they watched this. So he always notices strawberry shortcake. And here she is in all her rubbery glory. This is original from the 1980s, and it does work. There's a light that comes on, and there she is all the way around. There are people collecting this era again because this is their childhood. And so I let him convince me to buy her, and I actually think she's kind of cute in a really silly way. This was a friend of mine's mother's, and it's very sweet. It's one of these handkerchief ladies or ribbon ladies that they made. They're very popular in the 1930s and 40s. They were done commercially. They were also done by people by hand, where they take little pieces of lace and they would build these figures as pictures in frames. They're very sweet, and they usually sell for about $25, and that one's in wonderful condition. There are some other things that I got in my shopping recently that are pretty high-end, And some of them are going to be in my eBay listings. If you want early access to those, please do consider becoming a level 2 or level 3 member on the channel. You get early access to the video, and the members get to chat in the premieres of the What Sold videos and the eBay listing videos when they go to premiere. If you are interested in seeing those things that are going on eBay, and there's some interesting ones this month and you want to see them first, well, please do consider going to the join button or go down in the description below the dotted line in any video and look for where it says memberships, and it will tell you more. It's funny how I had this big antique estate sale in Spokane, Washington, and we sold a ton of this sort of thing. And then I get back to Kentucky and I go into the flea market, and there's a couple of tokens, and I recognize some of them because we just had the sale. This one was interesting to me, and I thought worthwhile buying. This is from the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and this was an event they had in 1924, a souvenir of their event in Cincinnati. They were at a peak in 1924. Things were going great for the WCTU. The prohibition had been enacted across the land. It took them years to get it to become a change to the Constitution, and it was solving all the problems. Unfortunately, about the same time, this is when the mafia is starting to form, and it turns out that it really wasn't solving a lot of problems. People were just getting hooch illegally, and it created a big underworld crime scene situation that we are still dealing with today. So, you know, a jubilee for them, maybe not so much for everyone else. Prohibition did not last. The Women's Christian Temperance Union has lasted in some form, though. And the idea that, you know, they would like families to be whole and people to be temperate, well, I can understand that. This is a neat piece. This was done originally for the, I believe, 1912 Olympics in Paris. And I can't remember the artist's name. Sometimes you see it with a design on the back as well. This one is flat on the back. But that's nice and early, and both of those pieces were under $5. They should both sell for about $20 to $30, depending on the collector. I picked this up because, well, I was coming back to Kentucky. I think this is her guys from the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, when she was in that movie. My father really enjoyed that movie, and my mother scowled the entire time. Ready Kilowatt pin. I'm just a fan of Ready Kilowatt. That whole lightning body I just think is really fun. And Ready Kilowatt, it's interesting, was a big deal in Eastern Washington because of all of the reclamation with the dams there. I found that in Spokane. Well, Ready Kilowatt is also a big deal in Western Kentucky because of all of the reclamation with the dams here. So I think there'll be a customer here. This is another World's Fair item. This one, you can tell I've been working on a storehouse sale and an estate sale because my fingernails are a little ragged there. But the New York's World's Fair ring here is from 1939 with the Trilon and Perisphere. That's a neat little piece. That should be worth about $20 as well. I just was fortunate to be going through the flea market distributing information about the sale upcoming, and, well, lo and behold, there it was. Costume jewelry, I know that I should talk about that a little because I have been buying some. I know you folks really enjoy it, a lot of you out there, and I got a bunch of pieces that are fun. And I think what we'll do is we'll start with the 70s Flower Power pins. I got these from a viewer and friend in Portland who is a dealer, but she was kind enough to wholesale me these. And I like these particular ones because they're larger and a little different than what you see. We'll start with the ones that are a little more common to what you see. This one with the bicentennial colors, where you have the enameling on metal. They would scratch, especially if cared for badly, so I really look carefully to make sure the enamel is good. What a great bright color of blue that is. I like that these are big. I like this one because it is very Flower Power in a magenta color. The plastic ones from the early 70s I'm finding are actually a little more upscale, funnily enough. These actually are selling for a little more money to some people. This one's a nice 3-piece set. A good example of the ones that seem to go for the most is this one here. It's big, it's purple, it's multi-layered, it's plastic with rhinestone center. I mean, this thing is about, gosh, 3 inches deep and 4.5 inches wide, and this is what people like. They like being able to see this from a distance. This makes a statement. and that's why people are enjoying them again. So my statement is, yes, I will take them. Thank you. These were all priced fairly. You know, when I'm buying from somebody who's a friend, friends are friends and business is business. I always try to pay a fair price. I don't expect people to just give me a great discount because we're buddies. But people often in the business do give each other nice discounts because, well, we're good customers for each other and we know we have different clientele, and sometimes the thing I can't sell, you can. This is another fun 1970s piece, and this one I believe has a signature. This is plastic, but it's a big orange butterfly on a nice chain, and it is signed El Raza, which is a company I haven't actually had before, but I've seen their wear, and I think they're a good sort of middle line jewelry maker from that era. I'm going to take her out of this for display probably, but she is cute as can be. She is a little enameled mermaid pin. And I would say with that hairdo, she is probably new look from about 1945 to 50. And that is really something cool. I have a lot of mermaid collectors, and I think a pin is something that they typically are not seeing, so that should go over pretty well. When I was in Spokane, I was at my friend Kareem's space, and I was looking at some of her jewelry, and I noticed she had a nice micro mosaic piece. Well, I actually bought a micro mosaic piece there as well from another dealer who gives big Sunday discounts, and this is the one that I got. It is a later one, later meaning post-war, because it's got a glossier back, but it's in really good shape. It's not missing any of the stones. I like that it's a more simple color pattern too. It's black and red and white with the gold showing. And so this is a little easier to wear for a lot of people. One problem with micro mosaics for some people is that if they're looking for something to match an outfit, micro mosaics have so many colors that sometimes they're a little more conspicuous than what people are looking for. So I think this is a saleable piece, probably around $30. This is a nice carved bakelite piece, and I always buy carved if I can get it, because it was actually difficult to carve. It was made so that it would be really, really strong and replace all those phone insulators. Then they made telephones out of it. Then they started making jewelry out of it because they realized it was so hard that they could carve back into it and it wouldn't break. This is a fun little bangle from a later period. This is a sparkly confetti, and I would say that this is 1960s. Love those colors. Let's see what else we have. Okay, at the Spokane show, found a little bit more 70s flower power. This one was priced at $15, and then they gave it to me in a bundle for about half that price. So I got it. I thought it was very interesting and a little odd, and I like it with the wire making up the thing. And again, it's all about how it shows on. So if we put it back here, you can see, now maybe you wouldn't wear it with the big flower printed shirt, but you can see where it really pops out because it's something different and the colors are interesting. And I got that along with this, which is probably the most famous Sarah Coventry pin. I'm not sure which of the companies made it for them. Sarah Coventry was a house party seller and they didn't make their own stuff. But some of the firms that made for them were pretty good. And this was definitely one of their most popular pieces ever. Came out about 1971. And I always buy these if I see them under about $6 or $7, I pick them up because they are consistent sellers. Everybody likes a happy face. This is very flower power poppy orange from the same era. I also got in that bundle, I think I only paid $24 for the 4 pieces in the end. This piece, now this might be 1980s, it might be a little more contemporary, but Halloween is here and it is a witch hat on a broom. So timely, yes. From the Portland buy, there was this piece. This almost looks like sculpture. TV Markin appears to be the signature on the back. I'm going to look into it. It's got a really fabulous modernist design, and there is a very clear signature on the back. So we'll see if we can find out a little bit more about that. My suspicion is that it might be worth $35 or $40. Sterling jewelry is just doing really well, and so I'm buying any of it that I think is interesting. I got a couple of pieces that are a little more native looking, at least. This one is a Kokopelli from the 1980s. This appears to be Navajo. It's on the small side, but it has a lot of dangle to it, and that makes it interesting. And the price wasn't too bad. I like the feathers. Also, this piece here, And this one does have a signature that I need to look into. This one has some very nice turquoise. It looks almost like Bisbee stone with the black inclusions. I'm not as knowledgeable as I need to be, so I'll ask a friend of mine who is. And there is the mark on the back. So we can do some research and see, is this 1960s, 1970s? Is this a famous designer? And is there a premium to it? I bought it with the assumption that there wasn't, at a price that it won't matter if there isn't. This is an interesting fob. I have not researched this either. This is sterling. It is English, even though everything is in Latin. And it appears to be some sort of an award medal that was given by some institution. I see an IH there. And Humanus probably tells us a little bit about it. I imagine that this inscription on the back, which appears to be in Latin, will tell us something as well. But the thing that I knew without having to be told was that that lion in the square in the middle there made it an English sterling piece, and the other identifying marks tell me that it's from about 1910 or so. And it's a nice heavy piece, so I was happy to get that. Again, I paid less than the silver value, so I won't be out in any event. I almost forgot these. In fact, I had to run out to the car with them for me because somehow I left them on the counter after I paid for them, but I got these in Washington State. And they are a very nice little pink dangly pair of earrings from about 1970. Anything that chandelier seems to do well, and clips can be adjusted so that they will actually stay on. This is a neat piece because it is celluloid. It is 1940s patriotic jewelry. I have never seen this tank in good condition before, and this one's flawless. It's not cracked or splintered. Celluloid was a pretty unstable and easy to crack and heat material, so the fact that this one is in really good shape and is original to the era is a good thing. You can also tell that it was not intended to be an expensive piece of jewelry because it literally is a piece of plastic that holds it on in the catch that easily could break, or this just might not go in there anymore, and then the piece would not be useful, especially if it got hot and warped. So you really don't see a lot of these, and that's why this piece might be a $25 or $35 piece potentially for the right collector. Here's a 1960s. This is an unmarked piece. It has some evidence of puddling, but I don't see the figure 8s that would make this a Diella and Lister, aka Juliana piece, but it certainly has the prominence and the colors of a good 1960s jewelry piece, and the fact that it has motion and dangles made it an easy buy for me. A couple of just cute things that were also easy buys in a different guise. The smallest version of this 1970s owl that I've ever had. I've seen them in this size, I've seen them in this size, and I've seen them in this size. And then this is from the 1930s. It is this very cute little carved Scotty dog. It would have had notepads or perhaps even calendar sheets in there. I figured somebody could probably use it for their business cards, and he had great glass eyes and was chip carved and was a whopping $4. So I said yes to him. Oh, let's see what else we have. Some other categories. Barware. I did get several chrome pieces. This is Chase, and this has the nice little Chase horseman. There's Pan with the arrow and bow and arrow, and that is the Chase USA mark. I do have the 4 or 6 little, they're very small little roly-poly chrome cocktail glasses that you poured this into. The only thing it's missing, and this is important, I didn't pay a ton for this, so it doesn't matter in this case, people will buy it anyway, but originally it had a strainer, and if you want to get full value, it needs to have the strainer today. This piece is hefty and heavy, and is one of those seltzer bottles. I remember the Three Stooges squirting these at each other a lot. This is just funny and silly and cute, and Christmas is coming. Now, she will go in the Christmas box with a bunch of other Christmas things that I will be bringing you to Mount Dora, including 3 boxes of Fenton Christmas novelties. There are Christmas trees, there are Christmas decorated animals, there are ornaments, there are a whole lot of fun things in that collection. And that one I am going to save for Mount Dora I'll probably divvy it up between that and some more live shows with Fenton because I have some really big collections, and I'm sure that I'll probably partner with Heidi from Rosie's Auctions House again, and there's a couple of other folks who I might do some stuff with too. I might do some on my own, so stay tuned. If you are not subscribed to the Antique Nomad live channel, that is where we do the live sales, so you will want to go over there and subscribe before the sale because that's the only way you're able to bid on things. Book-wise, let's see, we got this very strange novel, which is worth about $15. John Lennon in His Own Right and A Spaniard in the Works. This was published in, let's see, 64-65. So this apparently is a second edition. I'm sure it originally came out as a hardback. And forget it, Noah Webster, all those years of painstaking work were for naught. Along comes one with-it kid from Liverpool and the whole English language freaks out. And then it says, people ever love Leninish. I think they're trying to make fun of a Liverpudlian accent. In any event, that's some fun reading for a Beatles fan, and love the psychedelic cover, of course. Then we have a book that is, well, a coloring book, but I was just in Hazard, Kentucky, and it is spelled differently, but the Dukes of Hazzard are definitely popular in this part of the country. And there is still, I believe, the Daisy Duke Museum and store in Nashville. So that will be popular around here. And you notice she was cute, so she got the center spot. And then this one, which is also relevant to this part of the country because the original Uncle Tom this was written on was a slave not far from where I am in Kentucky. Unlike the story, he actually escaped in real life. But this is Uncle Tom's Cabin, profusely illustrated. This was a revolutionary book in its time. This particular issue is the Young People's Cloth Library, so this would have been one that was done a little bit after the fact. But it does have some interesting book plates in it. And it is called Uncle Tom's Cabin or Life Among the Lowly. Somebody thought they should do a little coloring there, so you can tell this was a children's book. Now that one is professionally color tinted. This particular piece probably came after the Civil War, but Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel really opened the eyes of a lot of people about the way that people in slavery were really being treated, and it made a huge difference with the abolitionist crowd. So even though now Uncle Tom is seen in a pejorative light, actually it was a very influential and important book in its time. On a more frivolous and fun thing, we did get one Snoopy item. I've got to start acting more sensible tomorrow. That could be my motto. Keeping in that same era, this is a little different color than you usually see for these. This is an Erica phone. It is a one-piece phone. It was built in Ohio and sold to companies that were not part of the Ma Bell AT&T network. You had to be with GTE or a smaller company to get an Erica phone because they did not have a deal with AT&T. They got a license from the company in Sweden that designed this first. These were made in many different colors, and I just love them. You can answer it, and you can dial out and talk on the phone very clearly. We're not sure that it rings. I don't know if there's a button or something I need to do to make it ring. I couldn't do it when I bought it, but the fact that the rest of it worked well, I didn't mind, because I got it in an antique store where I was putting up flyers for the storehouse sale this weekend, and it was only $20. One piece of railroad china I came across. I've always liked railroad china. This is Southern Pacific's Prairie Mountain Wildflowers. This back stamp is newer, but they went all the way back to the early 1900s. It's a very popular pattern. Sometimes it doesn't have the stamp, some of the smaller pieces, so you need to kind of memorize these flowers. It's not just a $3 plate at the thrift store, which is where I got this for $3. And it, in fact, actually is worth probably about $20 in that edition. If it was an older one, it could be as much as $30 or $35. And then this little piece came to me. This is Sascha Brastoff, and this is Alaska line with the igloo. It's a nice little footed bowl, and it is marked there. I have been selling these very consistently for about $20 a piece of late, and that one came very inexpensively. So, gosh, is there anything? Oh, yes. I will tease you with a few more Fenton pieces before I part. Again, I did buy things that are really cool in some other categories, but I am holding some of those aside for my level 2, level 3 member bonus video. Everyone will have access to those and will see those listings. Even if you're not a member, it will come out eventually. But if you want first access and the first chance to buy those things when they go listing on eBay, that's going to happen right around the end of the month. I will show you a few things. This is not one of the things that's coming on this month, but this is a spectacular piece from Fenton's Sea Life decoration on the Burmese blank. It's a really interesting shape. It definitely does glow under a black light, if I can find my black light again, now that I've made a huge pile in front of myself. There we go. You can see it glowing. It's a really cool piece, and this was done for the FAGCA, which was one of the Fenton Art Glass Collectors Association. There were and have been rival associations of Fenton collectors. And this particular piece was done for FAGCA, which I believe was the original Fenton sponsored collectors club. And this was for their 20th anniversary. So it's a hard piece to get, and we will be putting that aside to show in some future sale. A couple of other pieces of note from them. This is another really great Burmese piece, a tall piece that we will be putting in a sale soon. And let me show you two more. One just because she's very pretty. I think this gal really works in the Burmese. You know, the Burmese, the different colorations that vary, sometimes they apply really well to a piece, and I think this is one of them because her upper half is nice and light, and then it really flows into the color at the bottom. And then the other piece that I will show you, the final piece, is this, because all of a sudden, bells seem to be doing really well. And this little bell with the great pattern and some glass frit decoration should do rather well. This is another one that was a Bill Fenton. This is from the New Century collection, so this came out in 2001, so it's a very late piece in their line. Part of the reason there's so much interest in this era of the artware of Fenton, even though it was some of the last stuff that they made, is because a lot of it was made very, very briefly. Whereas you see a piece like this, as a non-decorated custard piece, this was probably in the line for 20 or 25 years. But when you start seeing some of the unusual decorations, some of those, I sold a piece recently for around $70. But it was because the decoration was really unusual on the piece, even though it was a piece that had been in the line for a long time. So, gosh, oh, and one last thing, I did mention this. I did, in fact, get a signature of Arlo Guthrie, and there it is right there. Roll on, Columbia. So I hope you had some fun with that. I just wanted to let you know that for all the selling I'm doing, that I am still buying, and I have you folks in mind, so I'm looking forward to seeing you at antique shows and live sales and other events, and we will have fun together. I don't just sell everything in the real world. I want some of this to be accessible to all of you folks out there too.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.